Hello and welcome back to Serie A Spotlight. We're your hosts Jake and Matt.
You know what time it is!
I can't tell you guys enough how much you've been my internal monologue when thinking about football for the last year.
Yes! Amazing!
We get to record while drinking some wine. Jake and I will have a very special soft spot for Salernitana.
We love him.
We love him. Stop zooming in on Allegri's face, bro. You're gonna make
How
me
are you
break.
exposing me?
Because you're gonna make me break. Man. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Serie A Spotlight. This is episode number 147 and we're your host Matt.
And Jake.
Fresh off an argument.
Yes.
A full-blown argument.
Full-blown argument. Can't even look at you.
I was worried the episode wasn't gonna happen because I wasn't in the right vibe.
No, it's happened before, of course. When you have a show that you've been doing every week for 4 years, there are bound to be disagreements.
Yes.
And we've basically concluded that you're a mustached twat and I'm a bald cunt. So,
Exactly.
So yes, that's the conclusion. To
It
the
comes
argument.
down to that. We're not. None of us are perfect. So I guess we're.
It's always hilarious how we go from screaming at each other to laughing.
It is mental. I don't think there's anyone else I could have that quick a transition.
There's
with.
always a peace offering, a coffee, a cigarette.
That's you, bro. Because you we have different love languages. If you want to forgive or something, you make someone something.
Yeah.
I pour my heart out.
Yeah.
It's two very different
Mine's so much
approaches. Maybe. But guys, why are we here? Why are we recording on a Saturday? The reason is we've had 10 matches of Serie A. We've had 10 match days. So it gives us a really good benchmark to look at each team and discuss them a little bit. Now, we know that there are 20 teams in the league, so we're going to have to be a bit concise. So I have a timer, a 5-minute timer. So we're going to discuss each team from top to bottom after 10 match days in 5 minutes. And I think we should jump straight into it, not before obviously thanking our beautiful patrons, my favorite people in the world.
We've got the list after 2 episodes.
Yes. Sometimes, sorry guys, we're very unstructured. But a massive shout out and a lot of love goes to Ed, Alan, Andy, Lena, Mint, Tonna, Theo, Mattias, Luca, Anthony, Mike, Dave, Mazzo, Battista, Kyle, Andrew Batman, Sluge McNoodle, Tim, Campbell, Tanino, Batman, Choco Loco, Joey D, Tony, David Vavra, Keanu, Tyson, Stephen, Robert, Kurt, Pieter, Sal, Grima, Steve, Mattia, Nicholas Bosco, Sean Nolan, Nicholas Granda, Greta, CJ, and our latest addition is Michele. Hello, Michele, Milanista. So you're very, very welcome in our group chat. Love you all so much. Thank you for not only your contributions, but for the daily vibes that you bring, the latest group chat in Serie A history. But without further ado, bro, should we start off? The league leaders, Napoli. I'm going to hit start.
So we've
5
got,
minutes.
have we introduced the timer? We're going to do 5 minutes on each team.
Exactly.
Maximum. We're not going to exceed them.
No.
We're going to try to keep it bite-sized and fair because obviously you can get carried away talking about Roma's situation or Milan's situation.
And then you get to Monza and it's like...
Yeah. And that's rushed.
Exactly.
So 5 minutes. Keep the timer on loud. Let's go.
Okay, it's begun. So Napoli, they've got 8 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. They've scored 18 goals, conceded 5. Their top scorer is Kvicha Kvaratskhelia with 5 goals and 2 assists, shortly followed by Lukaku with 4 goals and 4 assists. And surprisingly, Di Lorenzo has even chipped in with 3 goals. Now, the thing is, we've seen a shift to the 4-3-3 formation for Napoli, but my main question over here is they've got no European commitments. They're looking very dominant. Are they in a position to run away with it, and are they gonna run away with it?
So coming into the season, they looked like they were behind. That game against Hellas Verona, the 3-0 loss, of course, it seemed they were behind in their pre-season training and also behind when it comes to personnel. Conte didn't have the players he wanted, and in fact, we did have a bit of heat between him and De Laurentiis. Since that, they've brought in Bobby Gilmore and McTominay and Lukaku.
Yeah.
And that has, and Neres as well. And that has changed pretty much the entire dynamic of the team. Now they've got more depth. they lost Lobotka, one of the best registas in the league. And they made do with just Anguissa and McTominay in a double pivot.
Yeah,
you know?
and Gilmore
And
as well.
Gilmore as well.
Coming in, and now Gilmore and Lobotka being such different profiles. But when you've got a system or you've got a set of players that know how to win a match, and you've got a manager that knows how to win a match, if you look at the Milan game, if you look at the Empoli game, these are games where they're probably outplayed by their opponents.
Absolutely.
But they've got this certain mentality in them. They've got this structure, they've got the skill set that allows them to win even if they're the worst team on the pitch.
Conte, exactly. Conte has built this us against the world mentality. The players literally feel like they're the underdog in every match and in every situation. Even when they're playing against Empoli, there's this kind of energy about them that they have a point to prove. And it's probably the fact that, they won the league and then had the worst title defense ever. I'm sure Conte mentions that to them and how embarrassing it is, and uses it as fuel. And that's what he's good at, Conte. And right now they're winning ugly.
Yeah.
And they're suffering without consequence.
Yeah.
So against Milan, where they spent most of the game just absorbing pressure and Milan attacking, they still get away with it. And they don't need many chances to score because they're quite clinical, funnily enough. Like against Milan, I think the two clear chances they created, they took them.
It wasn't even a clear chance. Kvaratskhelia goal at the end.
It was out of nothing completely. I think that with Lukaku as a reference point up front, they can get away with a lot. The question is, so they can get away without Lobotka. Neres comes on as an impact sub. They've got depth in pretty much every position.
Even though they don't need it that much because they have no European competitions.
Which is massive because everyone's complaining about the fixture list. What happens if they lose Lukaku?
That is the area of concern, because Gvara is world class, of course, but they've got Neres and even on the other side with Politano, Neres is just a brilliant player that you can bring on. He could possibly be starting. But Lukaku, they don't exactly have a profile that could replace him as a reference point that gels the wingers together and links up. Funnily enough, Lukaku links midfield to attack, because of the way he drops deep and he outmuscles defenders and he brings everyone into the game. Raspadori can't do that. He's a very different profile. Simeone, he's got qualities that could allow him to do that, and with the right coaching, he could bring something similar, but not to the level of Lukaku, because Lukaku is the Kessie of strikers. He has this Hulk nature about him that makes him irreplaceable.
That's it, and no one is stronger than Lukaku.
No
one.
Not even
Especially
the unmovable Pavlovic. Unmovable.
He absolutely
hit the deck.
Decked him. It's true. He threw him on the floor. That's the thing. Lukaku is very unique, and we've seen he has his comical moments where he skies it. Last game, for example, he skied it, and then he had at the end a beautiful touch, very uncharacteristic of Lukaku. But he has improved, and he's been very good under Conte. And you look at 4 goals and 4 assists. And I think it was 7 starts. 7
or 8, I think.
7 starts and 1 appearance off the bench, I believe it was. Because he had more goal contributions than he did starts.
Crazy.
He's having a great season. The second he doesn't score twice, they're like, Lukaku's hit a poor patch of form. No, that's not the case. Lukaku is everything for Napoli. And without him, they really struggle.
Yeah. We've got 20 seconds left. I just want to give a shout out, obviously, to Conte, who came in and his 3 at the back wasn't working as fluidly as he would have liked it to. And he showed us the growth as a manager to change to a 4-3-3 formation, which has worked for Napoli over the past few years, barring last year, obviously.
Yes. And I'm going to stick with my prediction from the start of the season that they're going to win the league.
I think they're going to win the league as well.
Boom.
Next up, bro, we've got Inter. So Inter have won 6 games, drew 3, lost 1. They've scored 24 goals and conceded 13. Their top scorer is Thuram with 7 goals and 2 assists. Some notable players, of course, Lautaro Martinez, who has now scored 4 goals and gotten 2 assists, and Frattesi, who scored 3 and even got 1 assist. They are a team that have been conceding an uncharacteristically high number of goals, bro. Why?
Yeah. I think many factors come into this. So the fact that the fixture list is tighter than ever means they have to rotate their defense more. Bissek has been there he had a full season before this one. However, he was never really primed to be a starter. He was always brought on and handled very carefully and almost shown little trust. De Vries had a very bad season last year and he's looking a little bit better this season. However, the packed nature of the fixture list and the fact that you have many people who aren't used to being starters defensively at Inter, I think this has contributed to them conceding more, and the fact that Acerbi's no spring chicken, he's not getting any younger.
That's it. And also, you could also look at Sommer hasn't been as solid maybe as he has been as he was last season, so that not only contributes to his shot stopping abilities, but maybe with the way he's communicating with the defenders, they just look a bit more disorganized at the back. You see Juve, who were a team that were really struggling to score goals, they managed to put 4 past Inter.
That's true.
And those 3 centre backs in the past were absolutely formidable, and if you get past them, then there's Sommer, who is essentially a brick wall. But we haven't gotten the same feeling this season. Like you said, the fixture list has been much tighter, which is also leading to injuries. You look at their midfield, it's quite decimated at the moment.
Yes, they had Çalhanoğlu out. Barella, I believe, had a spell where he was unavailable, if I'm not mistaken. However, the thing is as well, the midfield is the protective line for the defense, right? And Inter's midfield do a lot of hard work. They do a lot of running. Mkhitaryan, Barella, and Çalhanoğlu are all workhorses. If you're playing 2-3 games a week, you can't give that same energy. So we've been seeing a lot of Frattesi, who's been coming on. He's got 3 goals and 1 assist, for example. He can give you something good going into the box late, kind of, and really poaching goals.
If they're controlling the game, then it's great to have 2 players like Barella and Frattesi in midfield, because they can get between the lines and they can offer a lot going forward. If Inter spend a lot of time off the ball, then that is where maybe you start seeing that Frattesi isn't as tactically disciplined or as stout as a player to be playing within that role to provide more defensive security in a very offensively set up team. So that is where they need a bit more of an anchor in that position, maybe a direct replacement rather.
That's a very good point. And the fact that Aslani systematically is a different build completely. So if you bring on Aslani, you're sacrificing from defensive industry, essentially, and you're getting more of a metronome. So if you're going to control games, I expect to be Aslani utilized in that midfield 3. Use him as a regista, why not?
So that's pretty much where Inter have been struggling. I think one place that they improved definitely is Thuram. Thuram has grown significantly from last season. It feels like he's gotten stronger, he's gotten faster, he's gotten more intelligent.
He's better at finishing, man, as well. He was quite wasteful last year. I mean, he still misses a few chances, but he looks so lively and yes, he's
important because Lautaro as well had a bit of an off spell.
It's true, and Lautaro always has this off spell, like for a month. A season, right? When they won the league, maybe he was consistent throughout the whole thing. However, it's great to see Thuram for them coming on and actually filling in his big shoes. Arnautovic still isn't to standard, and Taremi slowly, I guess, you could say he's coming into it, but he doesn't offer you what Thuram and Lautaro offer you, definitely not.
Of course, DeMarco has been somewhat consistent. I know he struggled a little bit more with fitness this season. And I just want to highlight, I think the most important player that we've seen this season, even though maybe they've been struggling defensively, is Bastoni, who is top 5 centre-backs in the world. If you look at his responsibilities with Inter's high line defense and the way that DeMarco's a winger, like he's not a wing back, funnily enough, he's a winger, literally.
It's true.
The amount of responsibility that he has, the amount of ground that he covers moving forward, coming back, and his last ditch tackles and the way he whips the ball into the box, he's so versatile as a defender. Definitely top 5 in the world.
I forgot who it was, but someone compared him to Roberto Carlos when he enters the opposition half.
Bastoni?
No, sorry, DeMarco, I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of the midfielders have a lot of responsibility to cover the spaces that Bastoni and DeMarco create going forward, and that's why they get very tired, and depth is very important.
Next up, Atalanta, the champions of Europe. 6 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses. They've scored a staggering 26 goals, conceded 14. Their top scorer, of course, is Retegui, who not only has 10 goals but has 3 assists. And that's not to mention Lookman with 4 goals, 4 assists. CDK with 2 goals, 3 assists. Zappa Costa and Samardzic getting 2 goals each. However, where we've seen them struggle is injuries this season, particularly in the defense, bro.
Yes, absolutely. They were totally decimated. They had all their starters out at one point. Darun had to play at the back. Godfrey has just come in from the Premier League from Everton, I believe, and he's not really primed yet to be a starter as well. He's not ready. And this saw them conceding a lot of goals, and the way they play allows a lot of space behind that midfield. And teams obviously know this, and they can exploit them on the counter.
Yeah.
However, recently we've seen an upwards trend where they've been blowing teams out of the water yet again.
It's a similar thing to Inter. When they have control on a game, then you're gonna get destroyed. In fact, one thing that they've done now is they've bounced back and they're blitzing teams, like you said. I feel like a top performer over here in the midfield with all that responsibility is Ederson, who keeps improving season to season. In fact, I do fear that this might be one of his last seasons playing for Atalanta, whether it's an upwards move in Serie A or a move to the Prem, for example. I do think that there will be a move. However, the weak point, and then in my opinion, comes next to him, where it's Pasalic at the moment because of the decimated defense where Darun is needing to slip in. I think having a calm mind and a hustler like Darun alongside Ederson in the midfield would make for a very good double pivot, a very effective one.
It's double pivotal.
Brilliant.
Yes, Pasalic is much better behind the strikers, and in my opinion, he's much better coming on and being introduced into a game than he is starting it. We haven't really seen a Koop Miner's replacement. Of course, it's very difficult to replace such a versatile player. However, Ederson seems to be shouldering the responsibility quite well. I have been impressed by the wing backs. Bellanova, we spoke about him, how he kind of had to change his game, going from a counter-attacking wing-back to one that is more comfortable when a team is dominating. And he's done that decently. Granted, his numbers haven't been high, and whoever must have taken him on Fanta Calcio must be upset right now. That's me, yes. I spent 90 credits on him, but for 0 goals, 0 assists so far.
God.
But Zappa Costa has been doing well as well. Still the guy. With Ruggeri out as well. And they've got some nice pieces. Their subs coming on, like Samardzic, have been a bit moody, and sometimes they get worse with their substitutions. However, lately it seems that they've got their groove on and they're bouncing back. It's interesting to see their form in the Champions League as well. They had to play Madrid and Arsenal.
Yeah, they lost 2-0 to Real and drew 0-0 to Arsenal, missed a penalty against Arsenal.
And that will affect, of course, their league campaign, because of course they lost to Como, for example. They lost 4-0 to Inter, they lost to Torino. Of course, that was in and around the time they were playing these Champions League games. However, they have beaten Shakhtar 3-0, but they've drawn to Celtic at home.
But the thing that I like about them is they are a deep, versatile team. Like, if you were to look, of course, they lost Scamacca up front. They replaced him with Retegui. They have Lookman, who can play up front, CDK that can play up front. But according to availability, they can shift very effectively between a 3-5-2 and a 3-4-2-1. I think that's where you get to see how well-rounded their players are and how versatile they are. Absolutely. Of course, Cope Miners was their most versatile player. But you still see versatile players like CDK, who could play up top and he could play in the attacking midfield role and even a bit wide. Same with Adamola Lookman. Brescianini fits that mold as well. And they've just got Zaniolo fits that mold as well. They've got
they're looking at Berardi now.
They're looking at Berardi now as well. So they've got many versatile players that allows them to play two different systems that they're very, very effective at.
And that is a massive strength of Gasperini, because so many times we see teams trying to replicate the starter's traits with a substitute that doesn't have those traits, right? So, for example, imagine trying to play the same system with Retegui with another striker in the team. They don't have that option. So, as you're saying, playing the partnership of Lookman and CDK up front totally changes the dynamic, it changes the system, and they are one of the most tactically diverse teams in the league. They're so flexible.
And they have an advantage because so many teams are going on their change in management. They're continuing on their Gasperini. So this is the season that they could really have a serious league push to go finish in the top 4.
And while everyone's saying, oh, should we sack the manager, there's pure serenity in Atalanta.
Exactly, no matter what. Next
right.
up,
we're gonna need a Gatorade after this, bro.
One of the most fun teams to watch so far. They've got 5 wins, 4 draws, and just 1 loss. They've scored 21 goals and only conceded 9. Their top scorer is Keane with 4 goals, Goodmanson with 3 goals. Now we've got Colpani, Cataldi, Beltran, and Gossens with 2 goals. Pretty much everyone scoring. Some notable players that have also been performing great are De Gea, Adli, Commuzzo, Ranieri. But I do think that we've seen a massive, massive improvement. It feels as though the manager Palladino has steadied the ship. We saw all those draws. We saw low-scoring affairs. Now they've got that confidence.
When they weren't ready, the priority was don't lose. In fact, they've got one loss, and in the long term, that's massive. It's massive. A draw is much better. The old cliche is if you can't win, just don't lose. Right?
Exactly.
And that's what they did. And it was looking dire for Fiorentina. They weren't looking great at all. They looked like they were out of options going forward. And in fact, when Goodmanson came in, at first, they were just surrendering the ball to him and being like, carry us.
Exactly.
And there was a game he came on, I forgot who it was against, he won 2 penalties and scored them
Exactly.
both. Now, with Goodmanson out, we've seen a massive contrast.
And Beltran playing
Because
really well in his place as well.
It's like Palladino's figuring these guys out. Palladino's being utilized. Beltran's being utilized as a 10 almost, pretty much, not as a striker. Keane is reinvented as a player. Granted, he still has his moments where he's
still
so
Keane.
unlucky. Yeah, but he looks so confident as well. And the fact that their sporting director, who I alluded to in the last episode. We've got his name over here. His name is...
Did I not write it down while we're prepping?
Daniele Prade.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, Daniele Prade has done a fantastic job, especially with bringing in certain players on deadline day when Fiorentina had leverage to make these moves, you know. They brought in the likes of Colpani, Cataldi, Bove,
and Adli
on
the
deadline day.
Uh-huh.
Which is massive, eh? Now they've got all this depth, and slowly they're coming into it. Adli's becoming a protagonist for this team. Cataldi is in the form of his life.
Literally, I've never seen Cataldi play this well before. Genuinely, he's really found his system. And this is the same guy, Prade. I didn't know this. He's now the sporting director at Fiorentina, obviously. He was previously the manager and the director of football at Roma. He was also at Udinese and Sampdoria as their technical director, Udinese the most recently, and he has the same birthday as me, 27th February, pardon me, but 1967.
The same birthday as Matt, Matt looks really young. Basically, Fiorentina have gone from the likes of Italiano, Gonzalez, Inzola and Milenkovic to Palladino, Goodmanson, Keane and Pongracic. Now, the only flop is Pongracic. However, Comuzzo has come up out of nowhere as one of the most exciting young prospects in Serie A. And it just looks like upgrades all around, man. Italiano's system is a little bit stale. We saw it against Fiorentina. It doesn't have a bite to it. It doesn't have the finished product. It's almost like a work in progress. And he's a young manager, so it makes a bit of sense. There's definitely the foundation for something good. However, he hasn't quite nailed it down yet. And we thought it might have been a problem of personnel. However, he seems to have taken that problem with him to Bologna. Palladino, the goals come from different places, right?
Everyone's scoring.
Everyone, bro. Like Gosens, Beltran, Cataldi, Colpani, Goodmanson, Keane.
Of course, a bunch of these. In fact, we mentioned Colpani, Cataldi, Beltran and Gosens all have 2 goals. A bunch of these guys scored 2 goals in a single game when they were absolutely murdering their opponents. But how important is that? How important is it that when you have a good game and when you're blowing your opponent out of the water, then you have players that can chip in, get goals and increase their confidence. In fact, the fact that Colpani and Cataldi are scoring now and scored in those games, particularly Colpani, how important is that to the team and how they're going to perform moving forward? Having confident players is supremely important, and it feels like right now they're very confident.
They're confident and they're having fun, because the system must be very fun to play because they have a lot of liberty going forward. And that's what we saw with Monza last season with Palladino. He steadies the ship defensively and then gives them almost a free pass going forward. Like, you know what, Colpani, you can express yourself. Goodmanson, you can express yourself. Keane, you can express yourself. And we've been seeing these moves that almost look improvised, not off the training ground. Like when Keane rolled it back to the player and ran in behind and then scored that goal. That was absolutely beautiful. I think that was a moment of improvisation, personally, from him.
Probably.
Because they have freedom. They don't have anyone shouting, "Oh, 1-2, play back!" You know.
And I think they have a belief in the manager and they have the belief from the fans. It seems like serenity at the moment.
And 9 goals conceded only, so very good in that.
Exactly.
In that
Now, speaking of fun teams, we jump to Lazio. 6 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses. Goals in favour 22, goals against 13. Their top scorer is Tati Castellanos with 5 goals and 1 assist. Of course, we have to mention Dia, who has 3 goals and 2 assists, and Pedro, who's even scored 3 goals. But Nuno Tavares has 8 assists.
It's gonna be 5 minutes talking about Nuno Tavares. He's a demon, bro. He's possessed. He's changed this Lazio side completely because they have a link from defense to attack that seems to never run out of batteries. He's never tired, even if it's the 90th minute. He'll bomb forward, and if he loses the ball, you see him sprinting back as fast as he can. He's got a great work rate. The players around him love him. Every time he gets an assist, they can't believe it. They run up to him. They're all celebrating with him like, holy shit, you did it again. He's on 8. We're on match day 11.
Literally.
Like, he's on course
to get 10.
Match day 10. Literally, yes, because 11's... yes,
from today onwards.
Exactly, from today onwards. So yes, Nuno Tavares has been instrumental and a breath of fresh air from the likes of Radu, Marusic, of course, and all those defensive-minded, Lulic, all those players at Lazio.
But they've picked it up in the league now, but not only in the league, but they're also doing very well in the Europa League, where they're top
first
of the league out of 36 teams. They've got 9 points after beating Dynamo Kiev, Nice and Twente, which... how easy. No, it's never easy when you play these teams in Europe, especially for Italian teams. Sometimes when they face teams from different countries, they tend to struggle, especially when going to their stadium. It's such a different style of football. But this is what Lazio have. Lazio are a very modern, offensive, high-pressing team. A team that plays with predominantly almost 2 strikers.
Yeah, they have 4 attackers every game because they have Dia, Castellanos, Isaacson, Zaccagni pretty much every game, which is mental. And we've seen a new lease of life from Pedro as well coming on. Yeah, the offensive players are having a lot of fun for this Lazio side. And shout
this is
out
down to Baroni.
Baroni, exactly. Because he could have easily prioritized the league, because the fans obviously always prioritize the league in Italy when it's not the Champions League, you know. So if Baroni had to lose league games in order to win in the Europa League, the fan mentality would be, it's not like we're going to win the Europa League, so prioritize the league, you know.
Exactly.
Let's compete with Roma. The priority is always to finish above Roma. That's how it is for these teams, you know. So it is nice to see that Baroni has managed to balance 2 competitions, and it's nice to see that Lazio have so many options and they could get goals from so many different players.
And they also have depth, which is maybe something that Lazio have never had over the past 2-3 seasons, which is good to see considering the amount of competitions that they're playing in this season. We've got Coppa coming up on the 5th of December as well, and I believe they're playing Napoli over there. I believe they play Napoli twice in like 4 days, 5 days, the same way Milan had that a couple of seasons ago. But Lazio, they seem to play the system as well that is quite similar to what Fonseca's trying to do at Milan. I like how Dia is an attacking midfielder, but he does a fantastic job at getting in behind Tati when Tati is dropping in a little bit deeper and linking the midfield to the attack. He goes wide as well to help the wingers overlap, and that he is the gel when it comes to the team attacking. He's literally the gel over there.
Of course, you're talking about Morata and Abraham, right?
Morata and Abraham, exactly.
Yes. It's true, and it's lovely to see because Dia and Castellanos aren't exactly target men. They're not the type of players you're going to put in the box and just cross to blindly, because they're very intelligent and they link up really well, and they've got great footballing IQ. In fact, they've both got assists as well as goals. Dia, particularly in that pocket, in the 10 behind the striker, has been incredible. Incredible. He looks like a naturally born playmaker, in my opinion.
They have really good balance in the team. I like the midfield duo of Rovella and Guendouzi. I think they've got Guendouzi that's really box to box and a crusher, and Rovella that can just calm the game down and play it around. And the fact that Gila joins the midfield is very, very important as well, to give them another player where they can start the attacks from. I do have to criticize Romagnoli and Provedel for their performances so far this season.
Yes.
I think Provedel is a significant step behind to where he typically is. He was better at Spezia, for crying out loud. And Romagnoli just lapses of concentration and really fails to insert himself in duels. He's
hesitant.
He's very hesitant, and he doesn't enter 50-50s. When he does, it's late and loses concentration.
That being said, the replacements are soldiers. So like Patrick coming on has been super this season.
Shout out to Patrick.
Marusic, when he's played, has also been tireless. I think Marusic was born with 3 lungs.
True.
3 lungs, because how his fitness is next level. Yep.
I'm sorry, but we're going to need to jump to Juventus, who had a super exciting Mercato, but now they are experiencing the shortcomings of their Mercato and the failure to sign more defenders. They've got 4 wins, 6 draws, still undefeated, however. They've scored 17 goals and conceded 7, 4 of which obviously came against Inter. Their top scorer is Dusan Vlahovic with 6 goals. Some notable players, of course, Weah, who has 3 goals and 1 assist, Conceição with 1 goal and 2 assists, Yildiz, 2 goals, 2 assists, Mbangula, McKennie, they've got 2 assists as well. Bro, a team that, of course, steadied the ship, like we said earlier. Are your notes gone?
Yes,
Christ,
you sent me the wrong thing. Pause it.
Oh,
we
God.
can pause the timer.
We can pause the timer,
Yes.
and I'm going to send you the updated one.
please.
Okay, we can breathe.
Yeah. Whew.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.
I'm sweating over here, bro.
Mela, I just need to send you...
Yes, please. You can airdrop it, actually, because it's... Apple!
Yeah. This is killing the flow a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But the listener can breathe a bit, you know.
Yeah, we're just going to take this time to chill. I'm going to make sure this is the correct one before I send it. I sent you the old one. That's hilarious.
I'm seeing that Juve's notable players knew not of ours. I'm like, bro, I'm freaking out over here.
I saw the slight panic in your eyes.
Yesterday we spent until midnight preparing these notes, guys.
Exactly, yeah. And then we fought.
And then we fought this morning. This afternoon, should I say.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Sorry.
This is a good chance, guys, to plug our Patreon. We have a fantastic group chat on WhatsApp. They're hilarious.
Yeah. $3.99 a month, baby.
$3.99 a month, and you can be part of this community. They're so funny. The Roma update was hilarious, where they were like classic Urich missionary kissing no tongue. Where did you send it?
Without the mission. WhatsApp.
On WhatsApp. Okay.
You should totally get the app on your iPad of WhatsApp.
Yeah, the app of WhatsApp.
Okay,
keep going.
We're heading in.
So continue the timer.
What we've noticed with Juve is they had really steadied the ship, and everyone was... So they were either winning 3-0 or coming 0-0, but they weren't conceding. It had been ages before they conceded their first goal. Bremer got injured, and now they've been super leaky at the back, even resulting to their first loss, and it came in the Champions League against Stuttgart, I believe. Yes, against Stuttgart. What do you make of them so far?
So I think that they're another team whose priority this season, similarly to how Palladino operated, they wanted to stop the goals coming in before they figure out how to score them effectively, right? So they weren't giving their all going forward. The fact that Dusan Vlahovic has been quite moody this season, to say the least, hasn't helped them. And now they've got an even bigger problem because they've lost Bremer at the back. So their defensive solidarity is gone, and they need to refigure that out again. So they're basically starting from scratch. You know? Kalulu as a profile is more similar to Calafiori. So for Motta, he can kind of replicate what he was doing at Bologna better. However, you are losing a defensive titan, a beast, one of the best centre back in the league.
That guy is now either Gatti or Danilo.
Yes.
I do think it should be Gatti and not Danilo, because Danilo's been having a stinker, but none of those can obviously compare to Bremer. I think that loss in midfield has also created this. Before, I feel like Juve were like, you know what, if we lose possession, if we try something and it doesn't work, we've got these titans at the back and they're going to win the ball back. And it's like they almost got the safety net, even with Di Gregorio on goal. I feel like they've lost that a little bit now, and it seems like the team is a little bit more on edge and a little bit more hesitant on the ball. In fact, they've gotten 3 red cards now. They've gotten red cards through Danilo and Di Gregorio and Danilo in the Champions League, and Conceição in the league, which feels like they're losing control of the games, and that is why.
Absolutely, bro. However, they do have many positives. Locatelli and McKennie are killing it. Yildiz has become a fan favorite, essentially. Conceição looks really promising on that wing, and he gives them a bit of width and the ability to take on a man and to attack more directly. You know, while other players want to cut inside, he's very unique to that system.
Yeah.
However, with that being said, I think that Thuram and Diaz are still coming into it, right? They're experiencing growing pains. Vote for them for the Love and Malta Awards. And yes, basically they need more time to come in.
Yeah, I think they need more time. I think particularly we've seen Thuram have good days and bad days. Diaz, we haven't seen him come out of his shell and bring his best qualities. He had a few games in particular where he showed us glimpses of promise, but that's not why you spent 50 million, right? I want to go back to Vlahovic a bit.
I was going to ask you, because we have a minute left, where you think they will kind of end up by the end of the season. We'll have 10 games of data. Do you think they can still challenge for the league? Because we had them at the start of the season kind of there, right?
Yeah, I still think so. I don't want to have recency bias and see that they had a bit of a... They are currently going through a bit of a crisis that is going to impact their entire vision for the season. I think their goal would still be to battle Napoli.
Yeah.
And I think with a few adjustments and with them getting used to each other a little bit more and getting used to the system a little bit more, it can still happen. Players like Conceição and Yildiz are making them way stronger, even Cope Miners. But of course, the loss of Bremer is a huge one. They just need to solidify themselves defensively a bit more systematically and not due to their individuals.
And the reliance on youth has proved to be a lot more than random. It's very calculated because the youth players that have come in for Juve have done very well. And this, of course, is Motta's speciality.
As a pedophile, of course, Motta is...
he can handle youth very well.
His hand is forced. He has to trust in his youth. But what better a manager than Motta to be entrusted with that role of developing players, right?
That's true.
Savona, Mbangula, these guys, Yildiz, of course. These guys are the future.
Absolutely.
Super. Next up, we've got Udinese up there. Udinese, 5 wins, 1 draw, 4 losses. They've scored 14 goals and conceded 14 goals.
That's so Udinese.
It's super Udinese.
Have a goal difference of 0 is so Udinese.
True. Their top scorer, of course, is Lucca with 4 goals. Some notable players are Tuvan, even though he's been injured, with 3 goals and 1 assist. And then they've got these 3 guys who each have 1 goal. Brenner, Bravo, and Nico Davis. Brenner also has 2 assists. Bravo and Nico Davis have 1 assist each. They went from Choffi to Runjaic, from relegation candidates to what, bro?
I think back to the old mid-table Udinese, because they are, once again, this is something they've never lost, and we've been saying this since episode 1 on this podcast, that Udinese are a very physical team.
Yeah.
They're strong, they're big, and they're hard to play against. And now they've got almost options out of nowhere, bro. Where did this Bravo come from?
I don't know.
Up front, you know,
he's an FM player like Iker Bravo, what?
Like a regen.
Exactly.
Lucca has upped his game incredibly. We've been again knocking on this Lucca door for so long, right? So, praising him, but he has become a very important player. As even when they're trying to hold a lead or not lose, because he's so street smart, he attracts red cards, man. And this is something that Udinese do very well. They're a team that can aggravate the opposition and force them to foul them, you know, and get red cards.
And they also they've got a lot of avenues for attack. You see this depth that they've got, you see this depth that they have up front. It's quite ridiculous. They pretty much look different every single game. I've of course mentioned how effective their wing play has been, which is very, very true. But even if you look at the games that they lost 3-2 to Inter, for example, and they were bringing it to Inter. They're a team that isn't afraid of playing their football, and they go in and it's pretty much a scrap with them every single time. But it's calculated from their ends. It's not like they are super, super aggressive. Of course, they're physical, but they're actually the ones drawing red cards over here, bro. Parma got a red card against them. Salernitana got a red card against them. Milan got a red card against them, and so did Cagliari.
Yeah, so they're dirty. They're in there to use the dark arts, right? They will definitely aggravate their opponents and draw red cards. And we've seen all this with Thuvan. Thuvan has been excellent, right? He's been the playmaker. He's been a player who is kind of a step above the rest when it comes to technique and vision. At some point, Sanchez is going to come into it. Yeah. And Alexis Sanchez playing once a week, if utilized well, can be very effective. We've seen him last season still have some moments that were very good, you know, for Inter. I think the player is far from finished. He's an excellent professional, so I highly doubt his fitness or his form will be up for debate. So I think that Udinese can actually, as time goes on, get a new avenue for attack.
No, and I think, keep in mind, this is the start of Runjai's tenure at them. So they're only going to improve. They're only going to get stronger. One place I really think that they improved is their... Not improved, but of course, moving forward, they've improved significantly, but they still maintain that tactical discipline that they had under Cioffi. And it's not in a way where they're just staying back and they're not fucking expressing themselves moving forward. But they found a really good balance. They are a team that could potentially be the best of the rest in the future because they've got so many avenues going forward to get them goals, and they've got that solid structure at the back and in midfield that can help them stay structured against teams like Inter and against teams like Juve.
And they're young, so every year they're getting better as a collective unit. They've got an interesting project since their relegation candidacy,
I guess.
Whatever, yeah. And they love building out of the back, which is an interesting thing. Because they've got look up front. They've got all these players who you can just knock the ball up to, and just hope that you retain it. That an easy avenue, the old Premier League tactic, right?
Yeah.
However, they're focusing on this playing out of the back, and it's interesting because they're doing it quite well, actually. And 5 wins, 1 draw, and 4 losses with 14 goals and 14 goals conceded for a team that was in danger of relegation for 2 seasons in a row isn't bad, Yeah. They've got a good foundation.
They've most recently lost to Venezia.
That's disappointing
in a game that became a serious scrap.
That's what happens against these teams.
Yeah, and I believe Udinese got a red card in this match, which is why they lost at Poyampalo, netted 2 penalties as well over there. Perfect timing. Start again.
Okay.
We move to Milan, who have a game in hand. 4 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses. The game in hand is against Bologna, of course. Goals in favour 16, goals against 11. Their top scorer is Christian Pulisic with 5 goals and 3 assists. Some notable players are Theo Hernandez, of course, with 2 assists, and Morata, who has 2 goals, and Leao has 1 goal and 3 assists. Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty over the future of Fonseca. It seems like he's losing the dressing room. It's not the first time that we've seen Fonseca fall out with players. We've seen him fall out with Dzeko at Roma, and it seems like he's falling out with Leao at the moment. Do you think Fonseca's losing the dressing room?
I don't know, man. I think the media, first of all, let's start by saying this, is unfair to Milan, because there have been other players who are meant to be stars who have bloody not had the best start. Let's look at Lautaro's Exhibit A. Why weren't the newspapers banging on that door, for example? It's always this...
Because of the agenda. Attitude. Because Lautaro works hard and Leao sometimes shows a bit of a carefree attitude, but probably doesn't help him that he's told not to track back and look, he's more of an offensive outlet.
Fonseca's under pressure. Fonseca wants to win. Fonseca will play his best players because he wants to win. Leao came on in a game against Napoli where Milan needed him so badly. And there's fan footage of him walking around for 2 entire minutes. The ball's being played around him, players around him pressing, and he's walking like this. Now, alright, don't track back. Sure, okay. I'm going to use the example that I used a few episodes ago. Nicolas Viola at Cagliari. He doesn't track back. He's their creative player. He focuses solely on creating chances. So they don't utilize him to track back. However, if a player's next to him, he's going to press him. It's basics. He's going to stick his leg out and try to get the ball. Leao sometimes doesn't even do that. So his attitude isn't helping him whatsoever. Should he be as punished as he's being? Should he be getting as punished as he's getting? No, I don't think so. I think that Fonseca, to be honest, when you go to a team and you're seeing a sensitive environment where Maldini was sacked and the best players are kind of on edge, empower them. I get that they're not helping you on the pitch, but you have to figure this out. You can't just keep publicly humiliating this player because you're lowering. Yes, you're lowering his value. You're decreasing everything, man.
Because Fonseca came in and his entire philosophy is playing a more narrow style of football, which of course helps Christian Pulisic because he's better, closer to goal. Leao needs to be wider, so Fonseca needs to as well to be fair to Leao, make an adjustment to allow him to play his superstars to the best of their abilities. Now, world-class players aren't exempt from playing a system. I firmly believe that. However, as a manager, look at Conte, for example. You need to show your versatility to be able to, if you have Leao, you don't play him closer to goal. You play him wider.
Play him higher up when you're defending for the counter.
Exactly.
That's it. And then when you're building up play and you're against a low block, focus through other avenues. Play through Reinders and Pulisic and Fofana and Chukwueze who can dribble in tight situations.
Yeah.
Utilize Leao with his strengths. It's simple. I get that, but it's such a disaster of a situation in every aspect at the moment with Milan, because the management has proven that they are incompetent. The whole Jovic saga, giving him the 9 and telling him you're not involved in the plans. Letting Kalulu go for free to bring in Emerson Royal for 20 million is fucking bizarre to me. Giving Zlatan that role and allowing him to talk the way he talked to the media, blowing up expectations. Of course, we're going to challenge for everything. We are Milan. We always challenge. Come on, bro, man. Have a little bit of caution in your approach. Things might not go as well as you want them to go. You're not in control. When you were a player, you were in control. You're not anymore.
Yeah.
So there are many weaknesses. The defense as well. Tomori is looking as rash as ever. Calm down. Put on some highlights.
Gabi has been the only solid centre back, let's be honest.
Yes, man.
Gabi has been the only solid defender.
And without him, it looks a little bit messy. And Chow has come in and looked calmer than Pavlovic and Tomori.
After a rocky start.
Yes, after a rocky start. I think that Fofana as a lone metronome isn't enough. There's no depth for him. He can't play 2-3 times a week. So once again, that's another gap that the transfer market left. Morata, remember, he was meant to be brought in as a substitute. He's the sole starter right now, with Abraham being punished as well. Loftus-Cheek isn't a 10. There are many problems, yes, with Milan at the moment.
Do you think Fonseca's future is at risk?
I think so. The way how cutthroat this management has proven to be means that, yes, Fonseca, I think, will be looked at under the microscope, even though they might be too proud to let him know. Top 4 quickly, before we move on. Top 4 for Milan, yes, no?
Yes.
Yes, me too.
Torino, 4 wins, 2 draws, 4 losses. Come on, Milan.
Come on, Milan.
Torino, 15 goals in favour, 15 against. Their top scorer, RIP, is Duvan with 3 goals. But Shea Adams with 3 goals and 1 assist as well. Notable players, Saul Kokko, who's come in and gotten 2 goals from defence as well. Sanabria with 2 goals, and Vanya, of course, has been a brick wall. They started incredibly well. They were fucking first at a point. Now, 4 losses in their last 5. After, of course, they were first at a point. It all started with their Coppa loss to Empoli, and now it's intensified after losing Duvan Zapata. Where do they go from here?
Maybe you could say that this is what would happen to Napoli if they lost Lukaku, because that's what happened. They lost their spearhead. They've lost their reference point. That guy up front who can take the ball down calmly, you can cross it to him. He's always an outlet, always, no matter.
Much like Atalanta, they've got 2 strikers that are nimble and that can join the midfield quite a lot.
Shea Adams has impressed me because of, again, how intelligent he is. Because he's a proper poacher, and his goals are often snipes more than anything else. Similarly to Sanabria. He's a very similar mode to Sanabria.
Loads. They're very similar.
I think that Torino this season will be another mid-table team, very similarly to Udinese, and I think they could have potentially pushed for a conference spot had Duvan not got injured, because that's a massive loss for them. I like their midfield. I like Ricci. I like Ilic. I like their wing backs, even though Bellanova wasn't really adequately replaced. Lazaro has been a little bit. He leaves a lot to be desired. So yes, I think again, 4 goals against 15-15. So you're looking at a team that is kind of steady, but that's mid-table.
They're allowing themselves. I feel like, obviously, from Juric to Vanoli, it's a massive jump. It's from a very pragmatic team to an incredibly offensive and aggressive team. And in fact, I feel like they've allowed themselves to scrap a bit too much for their own good. Especially recently, they've been losing control of the games, and they've been conceding too many for their own good. I know it's part of Vanoli's system. It's entertaining to watch for sure, but it definitely causes them to be a very leaky team. We've seen Kokko make some mistakes now after he seemed incredible as a start, as well as Mazina. He's been making a few errors at the back as well. We saw Dybala's goal when Roma beat them 1-0. You see 3 individual errors at the back. From
2 players who, as you mentioned, were so good at the beginning of the season. Interesting as well that they don't get blown away.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
They've
That's true.
lost to Roma, Cagliari, Inter, and Lazio, but it was always by just one goal.
There you go.
know, and they were always in it. There was never a point where they looked down and out. This bad patch that they're on started from the Coppa loss to Empoli
Yeah.
and was intensified after the Duvan injury.
And do you think they're going to improve as time goes on? Of course, they can't be as good without Duvan Zapata.
Yes, but time will improve them. As you mentioned, they're learning to play a new system, one that's a lot more direct than it is. You know, they get the ball, they're vertical. They just attack. Highly aggressive, focus on taking advantage of the knockdowns. And I think as a team, they're totally different to how they were last season. So technically, they should get better. Technically. But now, again, they're going to have to... They're relearning how to score because the reference point up front has got injured. And that's probably the worst injury you could have had on this Torino team because he's the most irreplaceable player.
Yeah. I think...
As a profile.
I think, of course, they're going to improve. Of course. But I do think that in a Vanoli system, they are going to continue to be leaky because his system is, and I know I'm going to compare him maybe to a notoriously very leaky manager in Di Francesco. His system is very similar to that in the sense that, of course, very, very offensive, very high press. And unfortunately, at the back, they tend to leak goals. So we've seen them lose 3-2 quite often, for example. And I think they will improve. But this is the new Torino. They're a team that express themselves moving forward, leave a lot to be desired at the back, though.
Yes, absolutely. And I think they have many, many good pieces. And I think they can have a successful season. I don't think they need to worry about anything. You know, I mean, the thing is just try to finish as high as possible. I don't think they're going to be in like a relegation scrap or anywhere near by any means. Like, do you think they can do Conference League?
No.
I don't think so either.
Roma, next up, 3 wins, 4 draws, 3 losses. They've scored 10 and conceded 11. Their top scorer has 3 goals, and it's Artem Dovbyk. Notable players, of course, Dybala, who scored 2. Baldanzi with 1 goal and 1 assist. I mean, where do we start with these guys, bro?
I think we should start with the management.
They sacked De Rossi way too early.
Yes, I apologize to our regular listeners because we're going to repeat this, but they have gone from building a team for Mourinho to sacking him and bringing in De Rossi, a fan favorite, to not get that much backlash, building a team for De Rossi who has a totally different system, 4-3-3, offensive, positive with wingers. Sacked him prematurely into the season after giving him a transfer market where they spent so much money. Brought in Juric, who plays a similar system to Mourinho, so that now they've got a team that is 50-50, built for Mourinho and built for De Rossi, you know, and the manager is similar to Mourinho again. So you've got their star signing in Sule, who doesn't have a place in this
It's
team.
a great system. It was a great mercato.
For De Rossi.
Exactly. Not for Juric. Juric would want very different profiled players. Not only that, but to admit the mistake, the CEO resigned shortly after. Now there's been a bust-up between Juric and Mancini in the locker room. There's clear tension between the players and the fans. The players, I believe there was Paredes, Mancini, Dybala and Pellegrini that went to meet the fans to try calm the situation. The manager's job is on the line once again. It's a complete fucking disaster. And my expectations were so high for Roma at the start. Now, of course, they had gone without a win for so long. But does it justify, when you have so many new players, to sack the manager immediately? And now they're flirting with the idea of getting him back, and it doesn't seem like there are any other options that they're considering. Juric, I feel bad for him, man, because he went in when tensions were super, super high, and he's not the guy you want to go in there and calm the situation down, because he's quite hot-headed. You could see in the way he plays football. It's just a complete fucking mess with Roma at the moment.
Absolutely,
bro.
and they're 19th in the Europa League with a win, a draw, and a loss. There's a lot of pressure on them, and you can see it in the way they play. You can see it every goal Dovbyk scores, he looks relieved, not happy.
Yeah.
Every even the last goal of Dybala, look how much they had to push to get it. The last game, there were no offensive patterns at all. And you've brought in all these players. You've brought in the top scorer of La Liga. You've brought in Sule, who many Juve fans were upset to be getting rid of because he had a decent season at Frosinone, and he's young and he's raw and he's exciting.
They've got the midfielder, what's his name again?
Which one?
He scored recently. His new Keita.
Keita, yes. They've got. It's a shame because everything was looking so exciting coming into the season, and now it's a bloody mess. And for me, they can't get top 4.
No.
It's too much of a mess.
No,
you look at Milan's system. At least Milan have the coach they built the team for. It's as simple as that. At the end of the day. So if you give him time, maybe he can piece things together. If they don't sack him, Roma, however, it's just playing a Juric system with the Rossi players. It's
it's a complete mess. Is his name Keita?
His name, you're talking about which midfielder, bro? Keita's of Lecce, bro, the new one.
The new midfielder, bro. The new midfielder that's looked really good.
Is it?
Fuck me, what's his name? Kone, not Keita.
Kone,
Jesus
yes.
Christ, he's been
really good. He's been the brightest spark for them for sure. The way he moves and his just strength as well. He's a very good player,
bro. And one thing that happened to Roma this season as well is they started the season off with this Dybala drama as well.
Yes,
so their fucking star player has been discarded of all his confidence, at times not even starting games, and not starting games for Soler not to start. They brought in Salamakers, who's been injured a lot as well.
That's a shame because he would be good in a Juric system.
As a wing back, as the left wing back.
But it was 3 months, so he should be back soon.
What can they do, bro?
I think the best summary of Roma's campaign has been that fan recently in a mosque holding up a piece of paper that said, "I'm so disappointed." What can they do? They have to support the manager. Someone has to come and approach the public and say, "This is our manager and we're sticking with him." Recently, Mancini was interviewed by fans in a car and he said, "We're all working together, we're serene." But obviously this was news after the bus stop. This news came out. So yes, Roma, troubled season.
Exactly. Bologna, 2 wins, 6 draws, 1 loss under Italiano. They've got 11 goals scored, 11 goals conceded. Their top scorer has 1 goal with Castro. Sorry. Castro and Orsolini have 3 goals, and Castro has 1 assist as well. Some notable players, of course, Odegaard and Ndoye. Odegaard has 2 goals, Ndoye has 2 assists. Bologna seem like a team that just really struggled to win, really struggled to score goals. It's like you have to say 17 prayers for them to score a singular goal. I'm not convinced by them in the slightest. Of course, they went from Motta to Italiano. They lost Zirkzee and Calafiori without adequate replacements. Italiano came in and he was supposed to create something similar or competitive. And so far, quite frankly, they haven't shown us that.
It's a whole lot of hype, this Italiano football. And I'm not talking about like quality-wise. I'm talking about actually watching it. You'd think, oh my God, look at how they're building the ball up. Look at how they're playing the ball around. Look at how they're getting forward. They're overwhelming. They're going to score. The cross must be coming in. It's just a whole lot of edging.
Literally,
edging.
And not the goated kind of edging.
The cap edging.
A lot of play to Orsolini and Ndoye and kind of hoping that they do something. Castro is a beast of a striker, but I think he finds it hard to insert himself in certain games. He's very, very quiet in some games because I don't think they play to his strengths when they keep playing the ball out wide and hoping Ndoye and Orsolini would do something. And they struggle to maintain leads. How many leads have we seen them give up? We've seen them give up a lot. We saw them, bro, as well. Against Parma recently. Parma were a man down. We know how leaky Parma are at the back. And they were a man down. And Bologna couldn't simply put a goal past them.
And it comes to the point where, I don't know if this is an instruction, it must be, or like a lost hurrah, but players have been shooting from everywhere for this Bologna side. It's almost like they've given up on trying to get in the box and they're focusing on long-range attempts, man. The good news for them is that Ferguson is back. That's going to be pivotal for them because the idea that they were flirting with in that 10 position was to kind of play Pobega there until Ferguson comes back. However, Pobega wasn't quite ideal for them over there. In fact, we've seen El Azouzi playing there a little bit, and he's been decent. But Ferguson's one of the best players.
Yes, that's Ferguson's role, and probably he'll come in and be the best player in this team.
Of course, he's coming off an ACL, so we'll have to see how he arrives. But he will, I think, it will get better with him.
He'll definitely solve a lot of issues going forward. But they also have issues defensively as well. We saw them concede 2 goals to Genoa through Pinamonti, which, I mean, Genoa are dead last at the moment, and they have their own struggles. And to concede 2 goals, to give up a 2-0 lead against Genoa at the moment, you simply have to be better. Have to be better than that.
Absolutely, I agree. And then in the Champions League, very disappointing as well. I mean, we weren't really expecting much. Bologna was a team that was way too good and they overachieved too much. And with the way football is nowadays, they just got picked apart, right? Every good piece from their team got taken away, be it through injury or be it from another team. In the Champions League, they've got 1 point out of a potential 9 with 0 goals scored and 4 conceded. So granted, they're a little bit more defensively sound, I guess, in the Champions League, if you're going to look at a positive, but they haven't scored a single goal, which is bad. Dallinga really hasn't come together yet either. No. Or Solini, when he scored his goal, it was like finalmente, he was so relieved again. It's not looking great for them.
In my opinion, they should ditch the idea of progressing in any way, shape, mean or forms in the Champions League, and they should focus on the league.
But how are you gonna? These players are playing in the Champions League. When's the next time
they don't have great depth, bro. They don't have great depth. They don't have the squad to be playing in those competitions and competing with some of the best teams in the world, man. You know what I mean?
It's true. It's just disappointing. I know a system like Italiano's will take time for the players to understand. But I'm starting to wonder, man, are these shortcomings of Italiano's system just permanent flaws? Should he change things up, you know?
I don't rate Italiano too highly, bro. They had the same issue at Fiorentina where his team struggled to score goals.
He was too good to be at Spezia. At Fiorentina, in the league, he was okay. But in Europe, he was top. He was super. He took them to, I don't know how many finals in the Conference League. But sure, it's a Conference League, sure, but still a knockout competition. The teams you're against are there to kill you. You know, they're playing the games of their lives, these guys, these teams. They're not used to it.
That's true. Next up, we have Empoli, who have 2 wins, 5 draws, 3 losses. They've scored 7 goals and conceded 9. Their top scorers all have 2 goals in Esposito, Giazzi and Colombo. In fact, they are the only players that have scored. For Empoli, other notable players have been Petzella and Agnorin, in our opinion. Bro, Empoli, of course, you look at 7 goals scored only and you don't think it's great. You remember where they were last season, where they even hired Davide Nicola to save their season last season, and he managed. This season, they look completely different. They're so tactically sound. They've got so much young talent. They're very direct and dangerous with their counter-attacks. They took the game, they lost narrowly to Napoli due to a phantom penalty. I think they only lost that game, and they lost a game to Lazio as well, and they have a third loss, I can't quite remember against who, but D'Aversa has done an incredible job with this team.
Absolutely, and at the back, Viti and Ismaili have been very, very good, particularly Ismaili. He's been a rock at the back, and the system is very solid defensively, as you said. And then going forward, they've got this combination of explosive, physical, tireless workers and technically able players. So you've got the likes of Fazzini and Esposito, who can cause problems with their movement and their skills and their intelligence. And then you have the likes of Giazzi and Petzella, who's been an animal this season on that left, who are just tireless. Again, up, down, up, down, up, down. They must be a nightmare to play against.
They've got Sol Bakken on the bench. Of course, they've got Colombo, who starts up front on loan from Milan.
Yes.
A lot of young Italian talent that's been... They've been doing an incredible job for them. And the fact that, together with that, their defense is unbelievable. Only 9 goals conceded so far this season as a team, again, that was battling relegation last year.
Yes, and they look totally transformed. And this is with signings that have come in under the radar. You know, I mean, we didn't think that they would be anything but the last team in the league,
Literally.
you know, in our preseason predictions. However, even on your in, for example, in the midfield, a player we had never heard of has been super for them. Fazzini has taken his game to a level that I thought he'd need another 3 years to hit.
Literally.
From last season. We saw that he was good, and we're like, this Fazzini looks good, but this season he's progressed so quickly, man. And the thing is, these players wouldn't find success if the structure wasn't so solid. So D'Aversa, I think we need to praise him because he found this set of players and utilized the system that almost complements and gets the best out of every single player. Everyone.
And it's interesting because you look at D'Aversa's 10 years before Empoli, he really struggled in Serie A. With Hellas Verona, he struggled. With Sampdoria,
But
he struggled.
he's the guy who brought Parma back. Huh?
Yes.
So from
in Serie A, though, I'm saying in Serie A, he's really struggled so far. But this is the team that he's really managed to do it with so far. But of course, we can't forget what he did at Parma. Where were they down to, Parma? Serie A?
They were down to the very bottom, bro.
And he got them all the way back up to...
Like, failed club, bankruptcy, down to, I think, I'm not even sure, Serie D, I guess, I don't know. But down to the very bottom, and he brought them all the way up.
Well, obviously an incredible manager. But again, when he was in Serie A, it was like, is this too big for him? But now with a team like Empoli, where I was like, what are Empoli doing? They struggled so much last year. They're going to bring in D'Aversa, who pretty much struggled with Sampdoria. They ended up a relegated team. With Verona, he really didn't do anything stellar. In fact, he just... Was he at... am I mistaken to say he was at Hellas Verona?
He might have been. Double check that.
I'm just going to double check. Because sometimes I confuse his face with Zanetti's face.
Yes.
D'Aversa, Empoli. Roberto, of course.
Yes.
Was he there? Let me pause the timer.
Yeah,
This is a bit
better. I think we don't have much left anyway from the timer.
Like 20 seconds. As a manager... No, Lecce. Sorry.
Lecce, yes, exactly.
Lecce.
Exactly.
Correction.
I think that Empoli this season are looking very solid. I think they've got the foundation to not have to fear relegation this season. I think that if things keep going the way they're going, and it's not like they've got irreplaceable pieces. You know, Fazzini was injured, for example, and they still managed to do decent things without him. They rested Pezzella last game. They still looked okay. You know, so... I think they're not really... Esposito has been out and Colombo's doing all right on his own up front. So it's not like they're totally reliant on certain players. Maybe they're defensive players. We'll see, like, if Ismaili gets injured, then maybe something tragic would happen at the back. We'd have to see what their depth really is like. But however, with this set of players, I think that Empoli have the foundation to stay clear of relegation for the rest of the season.
I do think they need to start scoring more goals.
Yes,
I think that's super
absolutely.
important to figure out how to do that. But speaking
and how
of
to get the best out of
goals,
Colombo.
Exactly. Speaking about scoring goals, Parma. 1 win, 6 draws, 3 losses. Of course, automatically promoted. Well, automatically promoted. They finished first last season in Serie B. They've scored 14 goals and conceded 16. Their top scorers are Dennis Mann and Bonny, who have 3 goals each. Dennis Mann has 2 assists and Bonny has 1 assist. Some notable players are Del Prato, who has 2 goals. Valeri and Mohamed have 2 assists each. And of course, Bernabé has been an absolute beast in midfield. Their one win, came against Milan, bro. How does that make you feel?
Normal.
But they are a team, bro. Pekka's team. They're not afraid to play their football, man.
Yes, and they're very fun to watch, and they flow. And these players are very talented, and they know each other very well because they were all playing together in Serie B last season. Bonny is 20 years old, but plays like a very experienced player up front. He doesn't seem to have many clear weaknesses to his game. And his improvisation and his ability to kind of to improvise in certain moments is really fun and exciting, I think. Dennis Mann started off very explosively. He links up very well with his teammates, etc., etc. However, recently, I'm not sure why, but we thought maybe it was because of the international commitments. But he was benched for one game and brought on in the second half, and then he was taken out at halftime in the other game, and these are in their last 2 fixtures. So the fans have been very confused by that, and even the fact that he hasn't been starting Mihaila or Keita. Keita's a new player who they spent a lot of money on, who should probably be starting. So Pecchia, even though his play has been very exciting to watch and very like champagne football against Milan, and they're actually scoring against everyone, he's under fire from his fans because they believe that Parma should be doing better, should have more points essentially, because that's it. When you see the team on the pitch and you look at the table, something's wrong.
And that something wrong is defensively. They're not sound at all, but not just their defense as in their 4 defenders, but as a team, the way that they steady the ship, the way that they close down.
They close the game,
because they don't. They just keep on attacking, and they've got a serious discipline issue. So far, Suzuki, Koulibaly, Cancellieri, and Keita have all been sent off. And that's a result, again, of allowing a game to become a scrap. I've never seen Parma take the lead and they're calm, trying to keep possession, going for the low block and trying to maintain that result. But you see them get a red card, you see them trying to get another goal. There's one game in particular, you see them, the 2 defenders at the back as the other team are attacking. Like, what the hell?
Just passengers.
Is this
and I think it's a combination of just poor defensive quality and a lack of structure, essentially.
Do you think
there's too much space at the back when they have a lead, or when they're defending the draw?
Do you think it's just to be criticizing the manager and to be calling for his sacking?
I don't think his sacking would help. I think it is harsh. I think they need to give him. They have a spell of games coming up, I believe, where they can get some points out of it. We'll have to wait, I think, because they've played very good teams so far this season. So I think with 1 win, 6 draws, 3 losses, granted, they were in positions where they could have got more victories. However, on the pitch, seeing the way they attack, I wouldn't risk sacking that manager, because that's so exciting and it's so effective, because they score against everyone. They scored 2 against Juve recently. They got the draw,
They've just drawn
to Juve, exactly. So that's I think the sacking, the calls for his head are too premature, and they were totally reactionary.
They've got 2 games which they can win now.
Which ones?
They're home to Genoa and away to Venezia.
I think they need to get some points here. 4 points minimum you need in
because then they have Atalanta, Lazio, and Inter.
Exactly. So I think these 2 games, to be honest, are going to be very telling of how their season will go.
But I'm incredibly surprised by the way that they've been playing, to be honest, and just 3 losses for a newly promoted team, 6 draws, 1 win, and just the manner in which I think they do have fantastic players, man. Yes. I fear for their lives next season, because they're going to get picked apart.
They are, and they need survival, or they're going to really get fucked, basically, because if your team gets picked apart and you're going down, all your players want to leave, so you have no leverage. If you survive, that's a different story. You have a bit of leverage.
We have seen players like Dennis Mann stay on after relegation.
But I don't think he'll do it again.
No. Next up, we've got Hellas Verona, 3 wins, no draws and 7 losses. They've scored 13 goals and conceded 22. Their top scorers are Mosquera and Tengstedt, who have got 3 goals each. Mosquera also has an assist. Some notable players, of course, Belayan, who has 2 assists and is their metronome, with Duda and Castanos, that have been incredible. They're also a team that has been struggling with discipline, as they've got 3 red cards this season through Belayan, Suslov and Chachua. They seem to have a strong start this season after their convincing 3-0 victory to Napoli, with Zanetti fucking going crazy on the touchline. But they've since dropped off. They've dropped off heavily.
And I think it's simply because they came into the season very well prepared and much fitter than everyone else. And they even blew Napoli out of the water, right? However, now it seems that they can't rely solely on being fitter than the other teams anymore. So teams have kind of started to catch up to them. Yes,
pretty much.
In fact, at the start of the season, they beat Napoli, lost to Juve, granted, right after, which is expected, and then they beat Genoa 2-0 without any problems. After that, 3 losses in a row, a win to Venezia, and then 3 losses in a row again right after. With the most recent one coming from Lecce, where they also got 2 red cards.
Madonna.
I'm not sure how to feel about Hellas Verona, because Hellas Verona recently have always been relegation candidates, have been weakening and weakening and weakening and weakening. However, they always seem to get out of it. This season, I'm not so sure. I mean, on paper, they are stronger than than I would say at least 3 other teams. I would say they're stronger than Lecce, they're stronger than Genoa, and on paper, I think they're stronger than Cagliari as well.
Yeah.
So in theory, I think when it comes to the personnel, they should have enough to survive. However, I'm not sure how I feel about Zanetti.
He's another one that has never really convinced me. And I think Verona as a team might need someone that's a bit more defensively solid, because Zanetti is all about building the ball out from the back and getting the ball into the box with plenty of touch, basically. And we saw that in the past, that his teams have struggled to score goals. Struggled to score. His teams have struggled to score goals because of the slow build-up that they typically do. They struggle to get the ball into the box rather than scoring goals. I feel like they need someone, because conceding 22 goals, as much as, of course, the relegation candidates, they need someone to steady the ship. They've always struggled defensively. Over the past few seasons, Verona have always been a team that concedes quite a bit.
And he's always been a manager who's conceded quite a bit. If you look at his time at Empoli, he lost 7-0 to Roma. He helped Empoli in 2022 finish mid-table.
I remember that. They had a great first half of the season, then the second half of the season they weren't great.
And then, in the next season, he lost the first 4 games in a row, including a 7-0 loss to Roma, and they sacked him right after. And now, of course, he's at Hellas Verona, but please go on.
And I remember, who's the guy in our chat that loves Empoli, bro? He's a Roma fan, but loves Empoli. Matthias. And he had said that the second that they got rid of Zanetti, it took less touches to get into the box, which was a great upgrade for them, naturally.
It's true. I think they have some interesting players. I like the way Mosquera has adapted to the league coming from Colombia. He's playing very well. And Tengsted, to me, looks very refined as a player. I think that he looks almost a level above, and if they utilize him well and can supply him enough, I think he's intelligent and experienced enough to get a handful of goals.
And I like the fact that they're starting him alongside Mosquera, because I think they make for quite a formidable duo up front. And they've each got 3 goals this season, so to be honest, just play your best players in that sense.
For me, the most impressive player at this team is Belayando.
Yes, absolutely.
Ever since I saw him, I was like, wow.
Just my favorite kind of player as
kind
well.
Of a metronome type, very nimble, kind of reminds me of Benacer that one season.
As you said, they lost 3 in a row now, and now they have 3 tough games coming up with Roma, Fiorentina away, and Inter. And then after that, they've got Cagliari, Empoli, and Parma.
And I think that's when we'll see if Zanetti will be sacked or not.
Absolutely.
In Cagliari, Empoli, and Parma, you need to get 2 victories there.
But still, Verona, still for a team that continues to get decimated season to season, it could be worse for them.
Absolutely. Relegation for Verona, yes, no?
Fuck. I paused it. No.
I'm gonna
Look
say,
what you did.
I'm gonna say
no. I see 3 teams like you said, bro.
I'm gonna say no as well. Fuck it. No.
Madonna, look what you did. Next, Como, another promoted team. 2 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses. They've scored 12 goals and they've conceded 21. Their top scorer is Cotrone with 4 goals. Some notable players are Strefezza with 2 goals and 1 assist, Nico Paz with 1 goal and 2 assists, Fadera with 1 goal and 2 assists, and of course Van der Brempt and Mazzitelli, who scored a mental goal in the last game. Mazzitelli.
And the commentator was so passenger.
Hey, he was so chill about it. To be fair, they did lose.
For Como.
They did lose 5-1 to Lazio in that game, so absolutely understand. But despite that, I feel like they're growing game by game by game by game. They had a very slow start to the season. They looked really weak. But now we're starting to see the effects of the way Cesc Fabregas wants to play football.
And it's mostly on the pitch, not thanks to results. However, their turnaround started. So they beat Atalanta 3-2, which was
their first win of the season.
Massive victory for them. They went on to beat Verona in another 3-2 game. So as you can see, they score a lot, but they do concede a lot. In fact, then they lost to Napoli 3-1. They played against Parma, and these are the type of games that always, as you mentioned, turn into a scrap. So no matter what type of football you're trying to play, they don't let you do that, you know. So Parma kind of pulled Como down to a scrappy level, of course, because if they tried to go full flow against each other, Como are much better than Parma in that regard, a lot more refined. Then they lost to Torino 1-0, and now recently they've just got smashed by Lazio 5-1. I think these incidents will happen with Como, where they get destroyed, because their football is so progressive and offensively focused, with passages of play that see overlaps coming from deep players, for example, which creates a lot of space in behind. They could go wrong, and once you concede, you have to attack more, you know. So it leaves room to get potentially destroyed. I do think, however, they will pick up enough points along the way to survive personally.
And to grow. I think they have pull, of course. Part of the reason that they're struggling defensively is because they were supposed to have a certain Varane over there, but of course he retired due to injury. They have Dossena and of course Van der Bremt, who have been doing a brilliant job at the back as well. But obviously there are growing pains. This is their first season in Serie A ever, I believe. So there's a lot of growing pains over there. They play amazing football with great passages of play. If they are pressed properly and pressed the way that Lazio pressed them, though, you tend to realize that they maybe don't have a plan B. Like with Cotrone up front, he's been excellent, Cotrone, this season, but he isn't that type of striker where you could just launch the ball to him if they're pressing you too much, and he could take the ball down and calm the game down, or you know.
No, they do the same thing. They always play it out the back, and then the difference is in the final third, the way they kind of approach the attack. That's very unique every time, and it's exciting to watch. You know, like who's going to run in behind? Is there going to be a dummy? You know, with Strefezza and Paz, the way they've been linking up, it's super fun to watch. Again, we've mentioned that they have a combination of very experienced players who have won at high levels, and kind of these guys who want to prove themselves as well, these young bucks. I think that they are a very, very exciting team, to be honest. They're fun to watch.
100%. And it's nice to see a team coming up playing such positive football. And I think, of course, they have a certain element of pull that can help them improve throughout the season.
You're talking about January?
Either January, even like as Belotti grows into the season a little bit, like I said, that maybe Cotrone isn't the type of guy that can give them that oomph up front, but rather he's good with the ball at his feet. He could include other players, so on and so forth. Belotti needs to improve in his confidence, and he could really start to bring that to this team in particular.
Belotti is the highest active Italian Serie A goal scorer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. After Ciro, of course, left last season. They have Empoli, Genoa, Fiorentina, Monza, and Venezia coming up. The Venezia, Monza, Genoa, and Empoli, they can rack up some wins over there, and it's needed. Now they need to start winning.
Yes. They had quite a tough start to the season. You know, they had to play Napoli, Juve, as we mentioned, whatever. So, yes, this is going to be very telling, and I think they can have some fun.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Next up, Cagliari. 2 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses. They've only scored 8 goals, which is the 3rd lowest in the league, and they've conceded 17. Their top scorers are Piccoli and Marin, who have 2 goals each. Other notable players are Luperto, who has 2 assists. Let's go back a little bit and see. They had Ranieri for 2 seasons in a row. Ranieri, who got them promoted through the playoffs to Serie A, and who managed to help them survive in Serie A in their first season back in Serie A. Playing a flat 4-4-2 system, 2 experienced strikers, and a very, very just pragmatic, closed team. And then they tend to bring on Luvumbo later for some explosiveness. They bring on Viola later for that creativity. So a team who, through Ranieri, who knew this team so well, they managed to stay up in Serie A. And maybe they didn't have one of the teams that should have stayed up in Serie A last season. But as a club, as a community, they managed to do that with a manager that knew this team well. Now they've made the transition to Davide Nicola. Nicola, who historically is a problem-fixing manager towards the latter part of the season. We saw that he struggles in the beginning of the season with clubs like Salernitana. He infamously or famously got fired twice in the space of 3 games for Salernitana at the start of the season. He started with a 3-at-the-back formation that wasn't bringing him too much success. Now, more recently, we've been seeing him play a 4-at-the-back. And they've started to pick up some wins more recently, which is obviously great to see. So they are improving. They beat, I believe, Parma and Torino.
They beat Torino and Parma, yes.
Yes,
correct.
nice. So, wow, the brain.
And they won in the cup
brain.
as well against Cremonese.
Uh-huh.
So I think, yes. So Cagliari at the start of the season weren't scoring that much, but they were defensively looking a little bit better than they were when they changed the formation. I think that the way Nicola approached the team at the start of the season didn't favor their creative outlets in Luvumbo and in Gaetano, for example.
Yeah.
Gaetano just hasn't really been up for it in general so far this season.
As well.
Yeah, I think for them to score it takes a whole lot. In fact, most of their goals come from set pieces with Luperto trying to knock it down or Piccoli trying to get on the end of a set piece or something. And I think that Piccoli, again, is the type of striker, man, who will frustrate you, but he will score a handful of goals and he will save you sometimes. So he's just a player they have to stick with, and the fans have to remain on his side and to empower him, because he's going to be the difference between relegation and survival for them. Because it's going to take a lot for this team to put it on a plate for Piccoli, and he needs to be confident enough to put them away. If he's getting 2 chances per game, he has to score 1 of them. You know, it's as simple as.
Yeah, I think he has a few experienced players around him that he can learn from as well. Of course, they have got a serious amount of aging forwards.
That's another thing. Lapadula, Pavoletti, and Viola are all aging, and they keep getting 1-year extensions every year. Pavoletti was rewarded with I believe a 2 or 3 year contract.
Oh, wow.
Which at his age was crazy. The Cagliari fans thought that was ridiculous, to be honest. But that's the classic Italian loyalty to a player who has saved you, right? Many times, because Pavoletti is a hero there, a Serie B playoff legend.
Yeah, he got them that goal in the last minute to get them promotion.
But again, they are one of the teams on paper that are the weakest. Structure is very important for them, and the organization. And one good thing they have going for them is that their stadium empowers the team.
Yes.
And that's what I mentioned. That's why I said what I said about Piccoli. Because in that stadium, they believe, they dream. Last season, we saw a comeback from 3-0 against Frosinone, where they beat them 4-3 in that stadium.
Crazy, man.
And in fact, this season, we saw it already, man. They beat Torino 3-2 over there. So crazy things can happen.
One of the 3-2 losses of Torino that I mentioned. I think a point where they improved a lot, bro, is having a player like Marin in midfield that could he can have a crack, and he moves the ball around nicely, and he's got a good work rate as well.
Set pieces.
He gets over set pieces, and he has great set pieces. And they just have someone that is a bit more fluid in midfield, and that isn't something that we saw them have last season. So I think that's been a significant improvement for them. And 2 wins this early on for a team that's going to be battling relegation isn't the worst thing in the world. They can definitely build off of it with Nicola.
Do you think they'll get relegated?
Yes.
Yes? I don't think so.
I'm afraid so.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think they'll finish like a point above them in 17th.
Interesting. I'm not fully convinced. I have to see how the season progresses. But
I think now we're going to start looking at the boys who are in real trouble, bro.
Yeah.
For me, it starts from now.
But Monza are next, or is it?
It's Lecce next, I believe.
Why do I have Monza next?
Do you have Monza next? Yeah, yes, because the tables changed, because there's a game on right now.
Okay, fire. Okay, so Monza, they've got 1 win, 5 draws, 4 losses. They've scored 10 and conceded 13. Not too bad, to be honest. Their top scorer is Dani Mota with 4 goals. Some notable players, of course, Juric with 3 goals and 1 assist, Kyriakopoulos with 1 goal and 2 assists, and Pedro Pereira with 2 assists. Their only win so far has been against Hellas Verona. The main thing over here is they had Palladino last season, and they had Palladino for 2 or 3 seasons. They were actually a team that were finishing 13th, 12th, 11th, 10th with Palladino, and they were very, very strong. Palladino out, Nesta in. The choice of Nesta was a significant gamble. Do you think do you think it's gonna pay off, or?
I think they're worse with Nesta, of course, because Palladino is no longer there because he proved that he was up for the task and he was poached by a bigger team, right? Nesta, as you mentioned, is a gamble, definitely. And to be honest, I like what I've seen overall. It's true that they're in a bit of a precarious situation over here. Their squad has been weakened a little bit, and funds, of course, since Berlusconi's passing, haven't really been the same. They came up with all this hype and investment, and then we're kind of left there, you know. I think that Nesta has shown competence in both phases of the game, in the defensive approach and in the offensive approach, especially when it comes to the build-up.
In fact, 10 goals, 13 assists. 10 goals scored, 13 goals conceded isn't crazy.
And 1 win, 5 draws, 4 losses isn't terrible for your first spell in charge of a team like Monza.
They do have, like, with the players that they have, and of course the manager is new, but with the players that they have, I don't think they should be in this position. Out of the relegation candidates, Monza have a really good team.
Yes, especially
Maldini,
at the back.
Mota, Juric, Izzo,
But
Carboni.
But they're good till a certain extent. They don't. For example, Maldini was out. They've looked a bit clueless when it came to offensive solutions because and then they have to rely on like Bianco, you know, a young guy out of nowhere, or you know they're feeding Juric, for example, who is very limited as a striker, but can be a decent reference point for a team in that situation when you have those players. I have been particularly impressed and shocked by the way that they insist on playing out of the back.
It's almost
mental.
too much.
It's almost too much.
Well, the game against Napoli. Napoli keep winning the ball high up the pitch because they're disrupting the play that Monza are trying to build up from the back. And they keep losing the ball, and it's like they don't have this plan B. They keep on insisting to build the ball out of the back and to try play this sexy football that simply, so far, it hasn't worked. They look better on the pitch than they did at the start of the season. At the start of the season, they looked god-awful. Now we start to see some passages, and we're starting to see, like, now I know what Nesta ball is.
Because it takes time, right, to learn how to do this. Pep Guardiola said this, right? He said that obviously you remember when he first took over City and they were conceding bucket loads? He said that in order to do this perfectly, you need to fucking concede, obviously, because it's a risky system. And I think technically on paper and personnel-wise, Monza have 3 centre-backs who are very good with their distribution, with the ball at their feet. Izzo he could play as a midfielder.
So Carboni, Mari.
Exactly, and Carboni as well, very good with his feet. Mari, decent with his feet, good. So yeah, I think that they have that kind of going for them, but explore the Juric Avenue every now and then.
I was gonna say one place they could definitely be better is like set pieces. They need to be a team that masters those. Especially if you're battling relegation with a 6'7" striker and the left foot of Daniel Maldini, that's clearly a plan B that you can work. And not to say that we haven't seen it, because there was a game recently that Juric assisted to with the knockdown after a long ball. So we are seeing them improve and try new things. But it's all obviously it's all the process.
To be honest, only one result they've had that is very disappointing for them, and it's the loss to Genoa. Because other than that, they beat Empoli and they drew to Empoli 0-0, and Empoli have looked very good.
First game of the season.
They've drawn to Fiorentina and Inter. They lost to Bologna, which fair enough, Champions League team this season. They lost to Napoli, drew to Roma, beat Verona, drew to Venezia, and lost to Atalanta, which is fair enough. So
Now
technically,
Milan tonight.
yes, technically for Monza, it's that one disappointing result. Everything else, to be honest, is excusable for now. I think they're on the right track. Let's just say that.
I think so. I don't
Obviously,
think...
the risk they have is because of
they're-
investment.
Do you think they're relegation candidates?
They're candidates for sure. However, I do not think they will get relegated.
Same.
I think they'll get better.
Speaking of teams that are definitely going to get relegated, Venezia. 2 wins, 2 draws, 6 losses. They've scored 10, conceded 18. Their top scorers, of course, Poyampalo with 4 goals, Poyampom, and some notable players, Oristano, Ellertson, Caviglia and Anderson, each on 1 goal and 1 assist. Now, they got promoted last season through the playoffs with Vanoli. Vanoli has since moved to Torino. They brought in Di Francesco, had a very quiet mercato, and they lost a very important midfielder in Tessman. And to be fair, they did replace him with Caviglia, at least on loan. Di Francesco has been showing his system, and I mean Venezia have scored 10 goals, but he has been a little bit more cautious with this team, right?
He has to be, because he's made the same mistake too many times, I think, in his career. And this might be one of his potentially one of his last shots in Serie A. Teams might not trust him if he gets relegated again.
This was already a stretch, the fact that he was kept on again.
Exactly. So he has to kind of change his approach a little bit. It's nice to play offensive football, but you need to be careful.
I don't think they're a complete guarantee for relegation, because I think they're one of the teams that like they can attack and they can score goals, and they have avenues to do that. I mean, Poyampalo is an absolute beast.
He conceded 2 goals a game, though.
Yeah, 2 goals a game. 18 goals so far this season. I mean, there are way worse records, to be completely fair to them. And to be fair as well, a lot of individual errors by Yorinen and individual errors at the back, which I don't think are Di Francesco's fault in the slightest. They do have a clumsy and leaky defense. Now they've replaced the goalkeeper with Stankovic, starting young Stankovic, yes, the son of Stankovic. So that is an improvement point. It's also good to see, like, they just won a game 3-2 against Udinese.
Yes.
Udinese, yes, which was just a great victory for them. And they could potentially ride off of that confidence. They're looking a bit better than they were at the start of the season.
Yeah, because they actually look structured, and going forward they have a lot of energy. So they look like they can remain in games. Poyampalo is a person they really trust up front, and with him on the pitch they have a good reference point, and they believe that they can score. And then certain players, like Buzio has been out. Duncan
recently back.
Duncan, for example, has recently been integrated into the team. He's a very important player for them, and a very good midfielder. 31 years old only. He's a coup for them. A lot of Serie A experience.
Oristano provides something that maybe like those legs and a bit more pace and a bit more like he can carry the ball forward. Maybe they don't have someone that can take on a man. Oristano is potentially that guy. I do think that they need some reinforcements in January, because that they had such a quiet mercato. The thing is, they didn't quite buy dangerous players, right? It didn't feel like it. So I think they need a few more of those.
Yeah, a creative player kind of that can create some
an attacker for them, because someone that can take on a man, someone that can have a chrach.
I like their tireless wingers as well in Candela, Zampano, Ellertson. They work very hard. They work well. However, for me, Venezia, I think will get relegated.
Yes,
I think so.
I mean, it's the most likely thing. I do think that they can, but they need the reinforcements. They need to sign a few more players in January if they're gonna turn things around. But 6 losses is sheer. But again, I think they could be in a worse position. This win changed a lot. This win against Udinese, because they showed they could go to a structurally sound, dangerous team that were bringing it against some of the top teams with great depth, and they worked them to the bone. They didn't get a red card against them. Said how good Udinese are at drawing red cards. It was a very mature performance by Venezia over there, and that is what I want to see from them. Yeah, they have some decent fixtures coming up.
They've got Inter next, and then Parma and Lecce. Both games at home. Very telling.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I don't know if
We've
there's
got 20.
anything-
We've got 20 seconds
seconds.
left on Venezia. I mean, here I think we said it perfect. That they lack an individual spark, but they're energetic and hardworking as a team.
Yes.
And that pretty much sums it up perfectly. And for this one, we have 4, 3, 2, 1. We have 3 seconds to spare. We're getting good at this. Next up, Lecce. Oh God. 2 wins, 2 draws, 6 losses. They've only scored 4 goals and they've conceded 19. Their top goal scorers are both Dorgo and Kristovic, who scored 2 goals each. Just an interesting fact is Dorgo scored a hat-trick in the last game, but 2 got disallowed. That was their match against Verona, which was a victory. Another notable player is Gaspar, who has been, I would say, a rock at the back.
Yeah. And trouble offensively as well for the opposition.
Set pieces. That's definitely how I had them. Now, last season, they brought in Gotti, who managed to turn things around for them. And he managed to make them... By the last 5 games, they were essentially not relegation candidates anymore. But it's been an incredibly slow start to the season. Is this what you expected from them, or have they disappointed you?
I mean, I expected them to struggle. The season is very competitive in every aspect, man. The teams that came up aren't even relegation candidates technically, you look at Parma won the league, the Serie B, they destroyed it. They were a level above the rest and they came up, so you'd guess that they're gonna do better than some of the teams that have been struggling in Serie A long term because they have more investment as well, for example, with their American owners. Same can be said about Como. Como came up, they weren't really a bloody team that's going to go back down, are they? It's a long-term project with a billionaire owner, Indonesian. Like it says, the only Indonesian in the league.
Exactly. Ever.
I think this is one of those situations where I'd sack the coach.
Ooh.
Yes, because they're not scoring enough, and
it's
granted,
bad.
okay, it's bad. 4 goals scored in the first 10 games is terrible.
And I think... you could look at I have the reasons that they're not scoring over here, and it's written really eloquently. It says Lecce don't score because they're shit and Kristovic is selfish.
You're not wrong. I mean, Kristovic is too selfish and needs to be slapped in the face. But that's what happens, right? When you don't really believe that your team can score goals, every half chance you have, you're going to shoot and you're going to be like, well, we're never going to score, I need to shoot. He doesn't play his fucking teammates in behind.
No.
And I think that they have this March Vinsky, who was brought in, needs to play, man. He's an offensive player. Udon needs to play more. He's not playing enough.
Udon is probably their best player.
Yeah. Rebic, he hasn't been utilized well enough. Play him closer to goal, Rebic.
But it feels like there's a significant disconnect between all of these players. It feels like Banda's doing his own thing.
That's it.
He's trying, but maybe in the wrong places. Kristovic isn't playing anyone in. He's essentially playing by himself, and I don't think he's the easiest character to work with as well. Dorgu is their star. And Dorgu's gonna leave, man. I'm sure Dorgu's gonna leave because Dorgu's future is incredibly bright. He's versatile, he's intelligent, he's tricky, he's their spark. But it's not enough. They definitely need a player that could gel it all together in midfield. I feel like they need a Belayan of sorts that could help. Because they've got Raffia, Ramadani, and Koulibaly. That screams hard work, but no flow, no. They can't control a game. They're losing control of games. Their defense is shambolic. They don't even get chances as a team. It's people doing their own thing here and there. It's a mess. I would agree with you. I'd sack Gotti.
Now, I think I would sack Gotti. I think I would give him 23 days. Right? Because on the 25th, they play against Venezia. Now, this is the question, right? They've got Bologna, Empoli, and Venezia coming up. Do you trust Gotti to go into these games and to try get you points out of it? That's the thing. I think that maybe it's still a bit premature to sack him. However, I think this is the cutoff point, that game against Venezia, because then after it's Juve, Roma, Monza, Lazio, etc., etc. It doesn't get any easier from there. So I do think that that this will be very telling. Maybe sacking him right now is unideal because, of course, they have just beaten Verona, which is a direct encounter.
That's
Granted,
true.
they're playing Bologna right now. I forgot that they had beaten Verona. This is what happens when we don't cover a match. You forget about it. But yes, I think they're in trouble, and I wouldn't be surprised if within the next month Gotti got sacked. Let's just say that. For me, they are relegated as well.
They're relegated, in my opinion.
Which is a shame because I love them.
One interesting thing to say is it's always a good idea to sack a manager when we've got an easier set of games because they can give you confidence, and you see if there are two struggling teams and one of them have a brand new manager and they have this new lease of energy and lease of life, it tends to help. But
you sack the manager and then you have to play Juve and Roma and you get smashed by both. You have a new manager but the team's lower than ever on confidence.
But you shouldn't sack a manager right after a win. So last placed team, unfortunately, Genoa. We don't have any teams that haven't won a game yet. Every single team has won a game, which is good to see.
It's tight at the top and at the bottom, bro.
Genoa, 1 win, 3 draws, 6 losses. They've scored 7 goals and they've conceded 21. Their top goal scorer is Pinamonti with 3 goals. Some notable players are Ekator with 1 goal, 1 assist, and Vitinha, who's gotten 1 assist. I mean, here's a good way to sum it up. This is their injury list. Malinovsky is out until the end of time. So Malinovsky, Vitinha, Messias, De Winter, Bani, Gollini, Ekuban, Anke. Those are their injuries. Solution, Mario Balotelli. Hell yes. So that is part of the reason. Well, that's definitely, like, I can't stress it enough. It's fucked up that they have all those injuries.
Yes, it's unlucky.
And it's the only reason they're struggling. Because they have an incredibly promising manager in Gilardino. We saw after he got them promoted, he did incredible things with them last season. Of course, they lost Retegui and they lost Gudmundsson from last season. So Dragusin.
And Martinez in goal.
So these are all massive losses.
Yeah.
But to me, they have the manager and they still have the players to work with. Yes. Unfortunately, those players are injured.
Yeah, that's it. The players that they need to make the difference are injured. Their owners are broke and are being accused of being a Ponzi scheme. They kind of, as you said, have been weakening season after season, and now the Gilardino's under pressure. Tell me why is Gilardino under pressure? They're playing so well, with the little resources they have left. Recently, Gaston Pereiro came on in the last 10 minutes of the game, so he's going to start to be reintegrated. They've lost all their creative outlets for attack, so this guy needs to get into it, and he's going to become one of the main, I think, options going forward. Because who's going to create the chances over there? There's no one else. Balotelli,
and they can't make the investments.
Yeah.
Because they're broke.
I think Balotelli is fucking interesting. I think it might be more of a distraction than anything else for the fans. I can't help but
screams Nani to Venezia.
I can't help but feel excited about it. He's a very talented player when he's focused, and I've seen Balotelli do things that have made my jaw hit the floor, bro. Of course, having watched him at Milan, that 1 goal he scored from miles out was absolutely incredible. He's a player who on his day can toy with defenses. We'll see what condition he's in. We'll see how he looks he might look really out of place for all we know. He hasn't played at this level in a while.
Keep in mind that these players, apart from Malinovsky, they aren't out for the entire season. So they'll be back, and hopefully Gilardino will still be there to continue to do what they were doing last season. Because again, losing Vitinha, which leaves Pinamonti completely stranded up front alone. Messias, who is that guy that can turn defense into attack. De Winter, who's our rock, you could say. Bani, Gollini, whatever.
Gollini, at least he gets to release an album.
Ekuban's another option for them, and so is Anke. So, I mean, hopefully, again, they keep the manager unto a point where these players could start being implemented again. And if that happens, if these players are back sooner rather than later and Gilardino's still there, I think they have what it takes to escape the relegation zone and to start building their way up.
If you have to look at Venezia, Lecce and Cagliari, I think Genoa have a better manager than them.
Completely.
From what we've seen, yes, Gilardino is very exciting, man. And the way he adapts tactically to different teams is very good as well. Like, you never see the same Genoa side twice, you know, like if they're playing a relegation scrap or if they're playing against a top team, they look different. And they've still managed to get some decent results this season, man, despite being lost. Like, for example, coming down from 2-0 to Bologna to draw is
they
good
drew
for
to
them.
Inter as well.
They drew to Inter. They drew to Roma, you know. So they've got the foundation there to not be a total pushover as a team. And that's something that we haven't seen in Serie A in a long time, because we've always had a team that was a pushover in recent years. Salernitana, Crotone, Cremonese. These are the teams that just lose. But it seems this season everyone's got a bit of bite to them.
I just want to read out their last starting 11, which was in their match where they lost 1-0 to Fiorentina. Like, you see that? Fiorentina won 6-0, then 5-1 or whatever. They go against Genoa, they only won 1-0, and then it was quite a scrappy goal in that sense. This was their lineup against them, okay?
Yeah, let's go.
3-5-2 formation, Leali in goal, a backline of Vogliacco, Vasquez and Maturo. Sabelli on the right, Aaron Martin on the left, midfield of Frendrup, Badel and Thorsby, with Pinamonti and Ekator up front. They're not working with a talented player over here.
Yeah.
When they're typically used to having Malinovsky and Messias in midfield, for example, and Vitinha up front, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's Gilardino against the world, because if Gilardino looks at his players, they're all on a stretcher. If he looks at the board, they're all stressing in court at the moment. He's like, oh my God, it's me against the world right now.
Yeah, and he has to make do with a regista who's so old, in Badel, for example. Thorsby has almost been the playmaker for this team.
Literally, no, he has been.
And Ekator has been a bit of a...
He's exciting
for them, but to rely on an 18-year-old is dire. It's not, and it's always, bro.
Give me
Balotelli. Put him as the spearhead. Gilardino has a good relationship with him. Let's see.
Exactly.
Let's see. For me, relegated in Genoa?
No.
So who's
I told you. Cagliari, unfortunately, Venezia and Lecce. Those are my three for relegation.
Cagliari, Venezia, Lecce. I would say...
I said this on the Adam episode as well, so I'm staying consistent. I'm doing that.
That's not a bad shout, bro, because Genoa, essentially, they've got a good manager. However, I would say Genoa, Venezia, and Lecce, I would say.
Genoa, Venezia.
I don't know, man. Cagliari have that fucking spirit about them, you know?
Bro, we did really well. It's not even 2 hours in yet. The whole 5 minutes... The whole 5 minutes thing really worked. This is just a bite-sized rundown of each team for now. For all of you people that are maybe new here and you're not used to an Italian Serie A podcast that gives equal attention to all teams from top to bottom, welcome. The whole point of giving 5 minutes to each team, giving 5 minutes to Napoli and Inter, and giving 5 minutes to Venezia and Genoa is for that reason, to show the importance of covering each team in equal effect. Of course, some of the top teams come with more talking points because they hit the media quicker when there's news. With the smaller teams, you have to dig a little bit and it's more observation-based rather than media-based. Yeah. But that's what we try to bring to you guys. We hope that you appreciate that. And I think that's it for us. Let's go enjoy watching some football.
Yes. Follow us on YouTube. Smash that like button. Leave a comment. Tell us where you disagree. Tell us where you agree. Tell us who's right in our argument, be it me or Matthew. Tell us everything, guys. And send us some money on Patreon.
Exactly. We love you all. And we'll see you next week. We'll be back covering each match for match day 11. Ciao.
If you like Serie A or have ever liked it in the past, it's a good opportunity for you to listen once a week and you'll get filled in.
In the football weekend, that's like the main dish. But then a few days later, you drop your episode and that's like the dessert. And the dessert is just perfect.
It's good, the cake.
It makes it feel like we're all sitting in a room together, just BSing with each other.
The atmosphere is fantastic. I promise nobody will ask you to send boob pics.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
I love how you go into so much detail and show so much passion towards each and every team. Literally, no team is left undiscussed.
When I listen to you, it's like I'm talking to you in a pub. It's like I'm chatting to a friend and you're chatting to me.